Thank the guests in the first half from the Black Lady sketch show. I really appreciated you coming. I appreciated you coming. I mean, there is a lot of talent here in this room. A lot of talent, and I want to embarrass you, Elizabeth. I have to point out, back there in the back there, that lady grinning embarrassingly. Her name is Elizabeth Ronald's daughter, and you know her. You know her as the editor of the first John Wick. You know her as the editor of Bullet Train. You know the editor of Atomic Blonde, Deadpool. She is Miss Action, and she is with us tonight. And the reason she is just to support these editors. So bless your heart for coming, Elizabeth. I know you're very busy, so it means a lot to a lot of people. Okay, so I'm going to start off with, how many people have actually seen The Last of Us? Yeah. For those of you who haven't, the clips that we're going to show are not really spoilers or what HBO is allowing us to show. But the discussion will probably be filled with spoilers, so you're really in the wrong place if you don't want The Last of Us to be...
Oh! Yeah. We'll talk about that.
Yeah, we will.
Whatever you said is fine. Anyway... Okay, so I want to introduce you to our very special guests tonight, and they are very special, and there's wonderful stories behind each of them. Timothy Good. Timothy Good, ACE, is a film editor, and he's a producer, and he's a director, and he's an educator. And after talking to him for a while and having lunch with him last week, you can see that educator part of him. He really knows his craft and knows how to talk about it. He has edited a wide variety of TV series, including The Umbrella Academy, one of my favorites. The Resident, Friends, The OC, and the original Gossip Girl, which was his first pilot. He also co-edited the feature Dead Man Down, directed by Niels Arden Oplev, the girl with the dragon tattoo, and was an editor on Dustin Lance Black LGBTQ miniseries When We Rise. He is a visiting lecturer at the UCLA Graduate School for Film and Television and has taught creative editing to directors and cinematographers for 15 years. He is a big believer in mentorship. And all of his past assistant editors have gone on to become editors in their own right, including Emily Mendez. And Emily Mendez grew up near Fort Worth, Texas, where she spent most of her childhood creating family videos with her siblings. After graduating as a film major from TCU, she made her way to LA, where she received her master's degree in film editing at AFI. Woo! It was at AFI that she was lucky enough to study under the many talented editors, including Don Camburn, ACE, and Farrell Levy, ACE, who encouraged her interest in visual storytelling to bloom. The mentorship led to Emily's eventual entrance into television, where she has worked on the editorial teams for The Umbrella Academy, The Residents, Light as a Feather, Rosewood, and most recently, The Last of Us. And the really cool story behind this whole thing is during The Last of Us, she rose from assistant editor to co-editor alongside Timothy A. Good, ACE, and I thought this would be kind of fun.
Yay.
Isn't it? What was it like the first time you actually saw that alongside, did that first front credit? Was that special, or was that, I earned this?
Well, it was special in lots of ways. The biggest thing is my wife is an editor, and she focuses in visual effects and titles, and she actually edited on the title sequence, and so she got to place my name.
Wow.
So that was, yeah. It was a really special day in our house. So
Yeah. Obviously, there's a lot of Oz out there. It is. Did you have any idea, Timothy? I mean, why? I mean, I know it is very special. It means a great deal to you to mentor your assistants, and like you said, all of them go on to editorship. And how does it work? Why Emily?
Oh, that's easy, because she's brilliant. I mean, that's just the end of it. Number one, she's a super hard worker. She is tireless, and she is joyful, and she has great attitude. I think Monica said that earlier. You have to have a great attitude. So that's number one. And she has an aptitude for this. She has a complete, talent for this, just genuinely gifted observer. She knows when things are happening in people's lives. She's like, oh, I could tell because I was watching your little this and that. And she just understands how to tell a great story. And from that, it was just easy for me to want to help mentor her and, teach her the things that I've been mentored as well.
How long did you work together? I know you worked at Umbrella Academy, the
We
residents.
did like three years now?
Yeah, a little
3
bit.
years,
3 years.
3 years before The Last of Us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So super fun.
Yeah, it's been amazing.
Yeah.
Tim is the best mentor I've ever had. So
Dear Lord.
a lot of what I've learned,
Thank you.
I've picked up from you, and yeah, great.
Do you just say, okay, you're now my co-editor, or do you have to go to the showrunners? Do you have to go to the execs? Does HBO say yes or no, or does the
It's really
union
hard.
say? Yeah, it's got to be a
Yeah.
little bit more complicated.
It's complicated, and over time, I have. First of all, I was mentored by Norman Buckley, who's an amazing editor from Fort Worth. So
There you go.
Go figure. It all comes circle, right? And he was really, really, really. He was so good at instilling me a craft that I did not have. So I had good instincts. I had good judgment in general. But he's like, boy, you really suck at this. And I'm like, okay, good. He's like, yeah, don't take it the wrong way. It's just you're not very good yet. So, and I said, okay, that's okay, I suppose. Meanwhile, I'm crying in the next room after that. But he was right. And what he would do is he would send me on. I was working on the OC at the time, and which was so fun. And then they, after season 1, when I was an assistant, I'm finally on a hit show, and they're like, "Yeah, you're going to leave now and do something else." I'm like, "No." So, but he and Matt Ramsey, the other editor on OC season 1, they trained me over that period, and they trained all the assistant editors in that period. And it was part of Norman and Matt's sort of mantra that they wanted to pass on what they had understood and what they had learned over time. And it was such a gift to be given. And after that, after I actually became better at the craft, and over time, and an enormous amount of experience helps. You have to do it over and over and over and over to actually get good at it, which is hard. And I wasn't great at first, of course. And I don't think anyone is. I think it's really hard to be great. You have to, it takes a lot of time. But over time, I sort of was like, I believe that any kind of success I've ever had, I have to pay it back. So every editor or assistant editor I've had who has become an editor, I've wanted that for them. And it's been part of my sort of work ethic and desire as someone who, is an educator as well. I like to teach. I love teaching. It's in my family's blood, so we love teaching. And so it's half the job I like doing is teaching, and the other half is doing the actual work.
How many years were you an assistant before you became an editor?
About 7.
7 years. How many years have you been in the business?
Like 7.
You 7?
7 TV.
You?
More. About 25.
About 25?
I know.
And
It's crazy.
no, seriously. No, I
I'm
mean,
youthful, I suppose.
yes, you are. You are a youthful-looking person here. It's 25 years, and all of a sudden now you're a celebrity.
Oh, no.
Oh
I'm
yes.
just doing a job.
Oh yes. No,
It's
but
cool.
you have become. Look at all the accolades you and Emily have been given for The Last of Us.
Yeah, she's a celebrity.
I mean, especially after from the beginning of Last of Us, it is blown up on especially in the Twitterverse and in social media, and all of a sudden it is one of the greatest television shows ever made, and you were part of it.
Yeah, really lucky.
And that's pretty cool. Well, it's not lucky. You actually worked on it and you
Yeah.
made it very special.
I can't take compliments. It's really
I know it's
Yeah, it's
it
difficult
is, it's
for
hard.
us.
So I won't do it again.
do it.
Yeah.
So all right. Anyway, congratulations
Thank you.
on your celebrity,
have
and which is why we ask you here. We want you to share with everyone else not only how grateful you are, but how good you are at what you do, and why is it that you're good at what you do.
my last
And I
name.
think we'll hopefully be able to answer those questions as we go on tonight. So rather than listen to me talk, let's show a clip. We have 3 clips to show,
Yeah.
and you want to go in any particular order?
Let's
Does it
do
matter?
episode 7 first.
Number
Do you
7
wanna
is
say that?
Emily's.
Episode 7 is the Left Behind episode with Riley. And that episode was really special to me because it's, first of all, the first one that I got to co-edit with Tim. And also, that was one of my favorite parts of the game. I felt like I really connected to Ellie's storyline and her and Riley's relationship, and because of that, I loved it. And so I was thrilled when I got to edit on it. So that's kind of
Oh,
There
and
you go.
can I quickly just say,
Sure.
it was what was great about being able to elevate her, and we never really answered this question, so I'll
yeah.
quickly answer it, is that Emily, I always give her scenes to work on. It's just the way I like doing things. I like to give assistants things to do, and then they give it back. It's similar to what Monica was saying earlier. It's great, and you allow them the opportunity to show what their art is, and then I could give them feedback, etc., and whatnot. And so I had been doing that early on in the series, and especially on episode 3. And so when it came time to have too many plates spinning, and I was like, I don't know how I'm going to get through all this. There's too much coming down the pipe. I said to Craig, would it be okay if Emily, who you know and who you love, because she has done these scenes and these scenes and these scenes, and yeah, I love those. What if she were to be able to help me on this specific episode? Because it also helps, because it's a gay love story. And it's something that's very close to her, and I think that for her to be able to help tell that story is going to be really important to the series as a whole. And he's like, yeah, it sounds like a really great idea. I said, and if something goes wrong, I will fix it, okay? So, all right, great. So, but nothing ever went wrong because I knew that she was capable, and I knew that she was going to take it full bore, and she did. And she absolutely destroyed the episode, and she did the whole sequence where they dance with the masks and they kiss at the end. It's incredible. So I'm just so super proud of that. And at that moment, Craig goes, she's something special. And I said, well, good. I'm glad you see that as well.
I know all the episodes. All the episodes were done out of sequence. Was this the first one or was it?
Yeah, this was the first one she was co-editor on.
Okay.
co-editing, yeah. But the first one we started on was Long Time.
Yes.
Which
So
I-
3,
yeah.
she did several sequences from that. So
Okay, guys in the booth, here we go.
here we go.
Oh, it's slimy. Yeah, it's been exposed for a few years. So, turns out when Fedra connected that block up to the grid, this place got connected too. Not that they know.
So what are we doing here? Trying to get electrocuted or?
Ow, pay attention. You're gonna go through there, then turn right, you'll see a door, go through it, wait.
No.
Fucking turn right, open the door, tell me when you're there. Go.
Fine. Are you gonna kill me? This seems like a perfect place to do it.
Oh, I'm aware. Are you there?
I'm here. Now what?
Oh, you fucking piece of shit. Come on. So, what do you think?
It's fucking. Wait, the lights.
We're fine. You saw outside. It's like a big bunker. No one can see shit but us. Just me and you. And you ain't seen nothing yet. Tonight I'm gonna show you the 4 wonders of the mall.
You plan stuff?
So how'd you feel? I mean, was this your cut pretty much 99.9%?
Definitely not 99.9, but I mean, a lot of the stuff that I put together in the first cut made it through. I mean, the one take, really, what's cool about this scene is this was one of the earlier scenes that came through that we were working on. So we were working on this character dynamic between Riley and Ellie and how that was going to be. Like, I'd seen it in the game, I knew what it was like in the game, but this was going to be something different. And I knew it was important to Craig and Neil to have Riley match Ellie as far as personalities. Like, this is someone that can kind of have the upper hand on Ellie. So we were kind of feeling that out as we're getting the dailies in. And in this scene, when I got to the point where Riley's like, turn right, open the door, tell me when you're there, like, with her attitude, I was like, that's Riley. Like, that is, like, so cool. And so
I laugh every single time.
Yeah, and so when I put it together, I knew I was working towards that take, and I was gravitating towards takes that naturally let me build to that specific moment. And when I showed Tim the first cut, he laughed at that specific take.
I did tonight.
In that point. And I was like, okay, this is what I was going for, at least during my first cut. And I was hoping Neil and Craig would agree, and they did, and it's still in this version. And, you know, I love it. It makes me smile, too.
Yeah.
And when you're doing the episodes out of sequence and you're talking character arc here, I mean, there's always going to be those scenes that you do that when episode 2 is not going to gel with episode 7, but you've done episode 7 before episode 2, you have to go back and adjust, correct?
Sometimes.
Sometimes?
It's a
I mean,
tricky one.
I mean, I'm sure Craig is there.
Yeah, and he knows pretty well what to do. Most of it was done because of seasons.
Yeah.
Certain seasons you just don't want to be outdoors in Canada, and that would be January. And so this episode inside of a mall was all filmed in the month of January, where they could be indoors the entire time. And then certain sequences had to be in the springtime, but they happened to happen earlier in the series. So those were filmed later. And that was one of the reasons for doing it. Luckily, you know, we had 2 incredible actors, and they really understand how to be in a specific arc themselves. And we learned a lot from them just working on their sequences. You know, I mean, we really saw everything. And it was just, honestly, Bella Ramsey is a joy. There's nothing like her in the world, as far as I'm concerned. Meryl Streep is, yeah, she's next. So, and Pedro is, the thing about Pedro is you have to look at the screen so close. You have to go right up to the screen to see what he's doing, because it's all deep back in the eyes. And so I was literally like going, and that's how you'd find out what he was doing, because he was holding on to this emotion deep inside of him, and he was covering it up. And that was the arc of his character in the entire season, was this holding back of this emotion. And so to figure out what he was actually doing, you had to spend a lot of your own energy looking deep into his eyes to figure out what he was doing. But in terms of just like things out of order, it sort of worked out. We never had to really go back per se.
No, and Craig would always steer us if there was an issue
Yeah.
that we were having that, you know, between episodes. But I think, no,
Yeah,
I
in
don't remember
general, it
going
was pretty
back.
good.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, well, you found the characters, obviously, and certainly, we certainly all did. I just lost my train of thought.
I'll pick it up.
Yeah,
Watch this.
you.
So this is like a Frank Lloyd Wright complex, right? And I'm wearing my Frank Lloyd Wright T-shirt because I'm from Oak Park, Illinois, which is
That's
where
actually,
most
yeah,
of
that's
Frank Lloyd Wright
actually part in
poems
your
are from.
in your bio.
So, on my bio.
In
So
your-
yeah, so that's why it's like really special to me to be in a Frank Lloyd Wright building right now. So it's really cool. So there, I picked it up. Moving on.
Okay.
So, next.
Until I get that thing back, let's go on with another clip. So we just showed 7. Do you want to go to
do
yours,
4.
which is 4?
Can I set this up?
Yeah.
Cool. So if you didn't know just what things you need to know here, Ellie, our young character, she was told over and over and over that she cannot have a gun. No gun. You're not allowed to have a gun. No. And she's like, I want a gun, I want a gun, I want a gun. You can't have a gun. And so she did steal one, of course, because she doesn't listen to what Joel says. And she stole one from Bill and Frank's house in the previous episode. And in this episode, it begins with her practicing being a tough person in a sort of taxi driver-esque sequence at the very beginning in front of a mirror. And so this sequence was basically how this all turns out. And the challenge for me in this sequence, just to give you a little context, was it was about how to show dueling point of views and to show things from a specific character's point of view and to ground you in that character in a way that you feel that you're experiencing the exact same thing with that character.
Okay, this is 4, all right. Ready, guys?
No, it's okay. It's okay. It's over. We're not fighting anymore. I'm gonna go home. I'll tell everyone you're good. I don't know what to do. My legs don't work. My mom isn't far. If you can get me to her. We can trade with you guys. We can be friends. I didn't know. I'm Brian. What's your name? Wait. You can have it. It's a good knife.
Get back behind the wall.
No. I'm sorry. Please. We could just talk. I'm sorry. Please. No, please. I'm sorry, please. You don't have to. I'm sorry. No, we can just talk. Mom!
This whole show is intense. You spent 18 months in editorial in this?
Yeah.
18 months.
It's a lot.
It's
fun.
There's no let up.
No, we were always behind. So.
But this is the intensity of the show. There's just no let up.
Yeah. It led to panic attacks, truly. So, like, I was just like, oh my God, I can't believe this. I'm like taking all this work home with me, and it's like causing me to have like, ugh. So.
Seriously, was there a lot of anxiety?
Oh yeah. But it's like, it's a really, again, I'm going to throw this to Craig Mason because his screenplays are works of art. They really are. And when we read the script for episode 3, long time, we were just like, oh my God, there's nothing, I can't believe this. And the thing I really hate about being an editor is that you never get to experience something that you made like as a first time viewer. So because you always know what's happening and you know what's going to happen and you know how the pieces put together and whatnot. And so everyone's like, oh, it's so great. I'm like, oh, I wish I got to have that experience, but I don't. So I don't. And so the time I get that is when I read a script for the very first time. And so when I read the script for the very first time, I had that emotion, I had that feeling. And it was daunting because you go, I have to live up to this, like I, as an editor. And editors, we are some of the most, the most important people in creating the art that you see on the screen at the end of the day, I believe. Because it can go so many different ways. It can go in a way that doesn't work. Or you have good dailies, but it doesn't work for people. They don't know how to fix it. They don't know how to change it. It doesn't happen. Then at the end of the day, it doesn't work. But if you really take the time and make it your passion and to help everyone to come at this sort of the goal of the story, and you always look at the story. You always look at what you're trying to say, what the characters are trying to become, and if you look at it from that perspective, you end up telling the story the right way, however you have to get there.
I think it was the good example in this scene. That's maybe it's the reason you chose it. There's a lot of action in this scene, but yet it's more character action than there is action. I mean, is that a choice, or am I making something up that doesn't exist?
It's a total choice, and it's similar to in episode 5, which is the big sequence with the battle sequence, where it was all based.
That's the one where the thousands of
things
came out of the ground.
Another fun day, days, weeks. But I think of it as character-based action. And what that, in my mind, means is all these scenes are basically two-person scenes that have just an enormous amount of mechanics behind them, but I really want to think of it in terms of how each character feels at any given moment, and to service their feeling and also the threat to the other character, the feeling of the threat to the other character, and how they feel about that character. So in this specific sequence, whenever I could, I was with Ellie, if I could, unless I needed to see a mechanic. So if there was a mechanic that needed to be seen, like Joel's being pushed to the ground, for example, I need to see that. I need to see that happen, and I need to see him being strangled. But in general, if I could, I wanted to experience it from Ellie's perspective as much as I possibly could, because she has to make the decision behind a wall with what she's hearing and not necessarily what she's seeing. And I want to withhold that information from the audience as much as possible so that you, the audience, hopefully are feeling the same anxiety that she is.
Yeah, that's the scene. It's her.
Yeah, it is her. She's.
But that kid, Jesus, he was good.
Oh.
I mean, you just felt so much for him. But at the same time, you go, is he acting? Is he trying to get out of it? He mentions mom, and he mentions, all this.
Yeah.
But
he gave an enormous range of performance, actually, which was really interesting, because one of the things Craig wanted to do, which I thought was really cool, was he wanted to switch it up a lot. So sometimes he was bargaining, and he seemed like he was a little bit more sane, but then other times he was like a child and crying for his mom. So you had this feeling of unpredictability from the character of this young kid, and it was important that it be a young kid, because she shoots a young kid just like herself in a way. So for that sort of complexity of his performance to be able to be utilized, a lot of times you'll say, oh, we have to use this whole take all the way through. That wasn't the case here. We kept jumping around to see how we could make him more unpredictable. And therefore it would be a little bit more scary for Ellie.
Was there a usual amount of takes?
No.
No?
This one had, I think 10 for the boy.
10 printed takes? I mean,
10 printed. Well, everything's printed.
Okay. Well, it's digital.
We look at everything.
Back in the old days.
Yeah, I know. And trust me, I get it, because it's a lot of work. But in general, you'll sometimes find magical things in takes that weren't printed. And not always.
And you watch everything.
Yes, we watch everything.
We watch everything. We have a way of marking different things in the footage. We have a whole system that Tim and I both use, just to mark different cameras. And if we see something special in the footage that we're like, oh, don't mess this up. You have to use this in the cut. We put a magenta marker. That's our special marker.
Yeah, the magenta marker.
So we love the magenta marker, and we always are very excited about it. And so we'll always be like, that was the magenta marker there, that shot. And it's great. It's in there,
It's in there, So
that's very fun for us.
We get excited about those things.
Yeah.
Does it ever change, the magenta marker? I mean, that's the
No.
one.
I mean, they don't all make it in.
They do.
But you try as much as you can to get as many in as you can if you're telling the story the right way.
Mm-hmm.
You hope. So.
Yeah.
Did you play the game before? I know you didn't, but Emily, you did.
I had played the game before. I was a big fan of the game. That's why when Tim called me and was like, we might be going on to the show called The Last of Us, I was like, what? We have to do it. So, I was very excited.
But it didn't make any difference whether you played the game or not, because you told me that you were making this show for people who hadn't played the game.
And that was a decision I made based on, number one, practicality. I got the job too late, and so I had no time. And then B, I thought about what someone had told me a decade ago. It said, don't know everything, because if you know everything, you might unconsciously do what they did. And I keep thinking about my mom in Chicago, in Oak Park, who has to watch these things, and she doesn't know the video game. So I wanted to really enjoy it. I wanted to really have a great, story experience. And so I just put it together in the way I felt the story would work best. And it turns out that my style and what I was trying to do was sort of dovetailing into what Craig was trying to do, which was a lucky sort of, coincidence. And it was just really nice to be able to do that. I've looked at some cutscenes since. I still haven't played the game because I don't want to. And now I feel like it's like I don't want to know. But I did watch a few cutscenes, and I was sort of surprised at the fact that there was a lot of pauses between lines. And I'm like, oh wait, wow, there's like all these pauses between these lines. If I knew that, I might have edited it with all these pauses. Instead, I was like overlapping everyone, making everyone real messy and dirty because I thought it was better.
That second interview you did with Hayden, that was side by side with the game and the show. Hayden, you still here, or have you left?
He's right there.
Yeah, I urge you to go to, was it editingpodcast.com or is it HaydenHillierSmith.com or the YouTube channel? Anyway, he did an interview with Emily and Timothy, and there's a side-by-side of the game and the show, which is really, really interesting. In fact, the whole interview is really interesting, and I urge you to see it because we're not going to be able to cover everything tonight, but Hayden's interviews covered a lot.
Yeah, it's awesome. I love it.
It's really good.
Awesome.
It's really fun. And okay, let's see. Our time is good.
Yeah, we're speedy.
Huh?
We talk fast.
Yeah. Well, should we talk about the elephant in the room, episode 3?
Sure.
All right. So episode 3 happened, and everything just went crazy in the universe, and all of a sudden, this is the greatest thing that's ever been done on television. It's this episode, and to all of us, I think it was the Bill and Frank episode. Which I'm sure all of you have seen. It was very special television.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a weird story. I feel like I was destined to do it. I was telling this to someone earlier tonight in the crowd, actually. And I feel like I don't know why, but I have known Craig Mazin for a long time through my husband, who's a friend of his. And he'd come over to our house for dinner parties, and we'd make terrible 70s foods and dare each other to eat them. And then he said at one dinner party, oh, I just made this show. It's called Chernobyl, and I don't know if it's going to be any good, but I think it's great. But I don't know if anyone's going to like it. I don't know. And he says, "Can I show you the trailer?" And I said, "Of course." So we put it up on the TV, and you see Chernobyl, and I just go, "Anything you do in the future, I will gladly do." So, but I didn't realize that it was going to be this until many years later. And somehow I was able to get into doing it, and he said, "Oh, by the way, your schedule happens to fall on this episode, and this episode is kind of my favorite thing I've ever written." So I remember the words exactly. Don't fuck it up. You told me you identified with Bill. Oh, very. I don't. I'm Frank. No, my husband's absolutely Bill. Oh, okay. So I was confused. I go, no, you're not Bill. Well, he ain't even here. So he's on the East Coast right now. He's like surrounded himself, and he's actually in an East Coast town right now. I'm not kidding. So might as well be Bill. So, okay. Got fences up and everything. So, but no, I very much understand these characters. I feel like I understood these characters very deeply, and the ability to see the subtext and the nuances of characters in dailies is an art. And it's really hard to do. It took me many, 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 many years, decades probably, to be able to be pretty good at it. And to be able to notice what the actors were doing and to basically carve as much as I could these silent beats that these characters would take to sort of prepare themselves for interacting with each other and to build the relationship between them from a place of tentativeness to fighting, to connectiveness, to understanding that the other one is never going to change, and ultimately to living this sort of life together in a period of 40 minutes or so was, I felt like I knew how to do it, and and I just understood this sort of the secret language that sometimes queer people have to be safe around each other and to be able to sort of decide how to interact with them. And hopefully what that's done is it's shown other people like me and like Emily, like we're showing ourselves, and hopefully you're seeing yourself there. But also, and what I've been really happy about is that a lot of people who have parents and even people who are in straight relationships are saying, you know, this felt like my life. You know, even though it's different, it felt like me too. And I said, that's fantastic, because that was, I hope, what we were trying to say, which is, it's not just necessarily equal, but it's the same. Love is the same for all people. And that was really, I mean, I know it doesn't seem like this, but I'm very shy. And so I feel very passionate about having a voice in this sort of the ability to help queer people of all, you know, ages, people. See what I mean? It's happening. So, told you.
You know what's remarkable about episode 3 is from the very moment Bill and Frank meet, which is in the hole, until the last moment in their bedroom, is only about 40 minutes.
Yeah.
It's a 40-minute story. It's a 40-minute story. It's one of the greatest love stories that I've seen in maybe ever. And it only took 40 minutes. And there are no montages.
Yes,
There's only title cards.
One montage.
There is? I don't even remember seeing
That's
that.
when he sets up the town.
Oh, that.
I know, but that's before he meets him.
Yeah.
So.
That doesn't count.
Doesn't count.
But just title
Montage.
cards, 1 year later, 4 years later, 10 years later. But the thing is, you knew what they did during those 10 years.
Yeah.
You knew what you did in the 4 years. You didn't need those visual montages. That's what's so remarkable about their performances and in the entire 40 minutes is that you didn't have the Rocky montage. And it was incredible.
Well, I think a lot of that goes to the script, though.
Sure.
I again will throw it back to Craig, because he would have a really very romantic sequence between the two of them, and he would say, "Oh, now you got to see the other side of it." And so then they walk out and they start saying, "Fuck you," and they start fighting, and then that changes and then when you go a few years later, you start seeing different aspects of their life. So it wasn't always the same. Everything was slightly was a different side of them.
Yeah,
So
it was
you felt like you
remarkable.
saw.
Remarkable. Okay, let's show
of which.
a little episode 3 here that you picked.
May I set it up?
Sure.
Cool. So this is basically 3 years into the relationship. It comes on the heels of the delicate romantic moment in bed. So this transition was critical to be abrupt and the opposite of that moment, as we just said, actually. And the challenge in this scene was that the sun was out for the first half, and then the sun went behind the clouds for the second half. So that's your challenge.
Okay, lights, please.
Would you stop? Do I ask for things? Ever? Why am I even saying that? This isn't for me. This is for us.
Who cares what they look like?
I do. Our home isn't just our house, it's everything around us.
Give me a fucking break.
Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot. I live in this world. You live in a psycho bunker where 9/11 was an inside job and the government are all Nazis.
The government are all Nazis!
Well, yeah, now, but not then. I am asking for some paint and some gasoline for the lawnmower, that's all. I'll do everything else myself.
It is not
Bill,
a ma-
if you say resource management, so help me, I will run through one of your tripwires.
Okay. Just tell me why.
I did. Paying attention to things. It's how we show love. This is my street too. Just let me love it the way I want to. And I'm fixing up some of the shops.
Whoa.
Not the stupid ones, just the wine shop and the furniture store. And the clothing boutique.
The boutique. Are we hosting formal garden parties now?
No. But we are going to have friends.
Excuse me?
We're gonna make friends, and we will invite them to visit.
We don't have friends, Frank. We will never have friends because there are no friends to be had.
Well, I've actually been talking to a nice woman on the radio.
You what?
By the way, we forgot to, well, let's just do this right now.
Show and tell?
What?
Timeline and tell?
We didn't show the timelines.
Yeah, timeline and tell.
So, but we do, let's start with the timeline for episode 3.
Well, this isn't the whole episode, though. This is just that scene.
Yeah, that's just a scene.
Yeah, so, like, here's the thing. I know Timeline Tuesday's a thing.
It's fun.
And it's cool. I don't know, like, oh my God, I'm gonna get in so much trouble. But I'm doing
Really? Should we
doing
not show
it.
this?
Honestly, the only thing that matters to me is V1, A1, and A2.
Okay.
Because that's where, honestly, most of the work goes.
Nobody take a picture, please.
Yeah, it's probably not a good idea. But in general, like, that's the thing about it. And all the stuff that's in the sound effects tracks, is this 3? Yeah. So you can see the previous shot is really long. It's like even longer before it from the previous scene. So going in, it had to have the variety of the next sequence. And, you know, most of it is overlap because I like A1 and A2 to overlap. I like to create overlaps. So sometimes, yes, you're going to see a little hinkiness on the other side of the shoulder because they're not exactly saying it the way that they said it, but I don't care because I want to create a pace. I want to create an overlapping pace because nobody waits for anyone else to finish their lines. They just don't do it. See? It just doesn't work. And of course, filmmaking itself, you have to wait because otherwise you'll, you know, get in trouble by the other actors. You're stepping on their lines, and it's a whole, you know, it's a respect thing. But I don't have to have that respect. I can actually create something that's messier and make it work for what I think is the correct pace. And people, when they argue, they do not wait. So they just keep talking over each other. And most of the time, it's even more so. So it's nice to see all that. Oh, and the other thing about that scene that I can tell you is, oh gosh, one of the good takes on Frank, his undershirt became unrolled, so it was all white on one side, and it just shows up it's so obvious. So anytime you'd cut to it, it was like, oh my gosh, I'm in so much trouble because normally I don't care as much about continuity. I don't know, I just don't. I care more about the emotions and the story than I do about continuity. If continuity has to go away, great. But this was one of the things where I was like, oh, I'm in trouble here. So thankfully, our visual effects supervisor was like, oh, get rid of those. And the other thing is that everyone was worried about this scene because, well, the sun, what do we do? I said, let's just tell a story and see what happens because I feel like you'll forgive almost anything if the story works and if the pace works and if the idea works, you'll forget. And if I didn't tell you that, you may not have even noticed. But I wanted you to know.
Let's look at episode 7's timeline, just for the heck of it. All right.
Yep, that's for that scene that we played.
That's definitely an Emily timeline. I love it.
Yeah. No, I care a little bit more about sound effects, I think, sometimes than Tim does. But that is one thing that helped me move up a little bit because Craig Mazin, our showrunner, who we love, he loves sound. And I also love sound.
Yeah.
And so when we started working at the very beginning of the series, I was always doing the sound on all of our episodes, and that's how I kind of started working with Craig, was just doing the sound notes for him. But in this specific scene that we showed earlier, towards the far end of the timeline is where we have the lights coming on for when Ellie is standing and seeing the mall come up, like with, as far as all the lights turning on in segments. And the cool thing about that is it was all in front of a blue screen. So when we're watching, we're behind Ellie, and then there's just a blue screen in front of her. So that's like what I had in the dailies. And so the question is like, well, how do you time that? Like, how do you know like what works? And the first thing that I did was the sound design. So you're hearing these sections of the mall turn on. It started to create this rhythm. And between that and then Bella's performance, which is fantastic, I was able to put something together, and then we were able to work with our visual effects team led by Alex Wong, who's amazing, and him and Craig worked on getting that timing, really finite, but it was great, and the sound was key for me at least. for that scene.
Oh yeah, big time. And the reason why they had to use blue screen, is because in Canada they don't have second stories in their malls, evidently.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
So we needed a second story mall to make it look like an American
Really?
mall.
Yep.
So it had to be blue screen. Mm-hmm. It's a warehouse.
Episode 4's timeline. By the way, your timelines are so pretty.
Oh, thank you.
I just look at V1, A1, and 2.
They're very well organized.
Well, organization is pretty critical
Yeah.
if you're doing this
Yeah.
job.
Yeah.
So, and that's the thing. If you're out there and you're wondering, like, how can I be a good assistant? Organization. If you can be organized for the people you're working with, they're going to love you. So, because organization is critical to everything. Because if something goes wrong, if you're very organized, then you can just immediately say, oh, this is where this is, this is where that is, this is where this is. Okay, great, because everyone's running around, everything is a disaster. And then meanwhile, people who are organized sit back and go, yep, we got it.
Yeah, and it sets yourself up for success if you're an assistant also, because then when you're doing turnovers, I feel like you're a lot more successful if everything is organized, at least in my experience.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Were you always organized, Tim?
Yeah, my dad's an accountant.
Emily, you always organized?
Yeah, and I'm kind of in the middle. I've learned that for this kind of stuff, I do have to be. So
Yeah.
I kind of in the middle on that.
She has more of an artistic side than I do.
Yeah. I wouldn't say that, but
Yeah, well.